My name is Walter, and this is my confession. I never meant for it to be personal. It was supposed to be another marketing stunt, one of those clever digital traps that sell the illusion of connection. My name is Walter, and people pay me obscene amounts of money to make strangers fall in love with products, with brands, with stories we manufacture in air-conditioned rooms. But somewhere between the focus groups and the endless presentations, I began to wonder what real affection even looked like when you stripped away the algorithms. So I built one. A fake profile. Walt, age 32, freelance designer, single, charming but not threatening. My team had done it a dozen times before. The difference was, this time I didn't assign it to an intern. I ran it myself. I told no one. That's how I met Melanie. Her photo wasn't professional, slightly blurred, caught between a grin and a blush. She looked like the kind of woman who thought before she smiled, and then smiled anyway. Her bio said she was a robotics student working on machines that feel things. I laughed when I read it. The irony of it, me, pretending to be human, her, trying to teach humanity to meddle, was too rich to resist. Her first message was simple. Asterisk, you look like someone who doesn't sleep enough. Asterisk. I replied, asterisk only when someone interesting keeps me awake. Asterisk. She sent a single emoji. A small heart, not red, but blue. Cold, sincere, cautious. Every rule I had written for this campaign, detachment, objectivity, documentation, evaporated. I waited for her texts like other men wait for promotions. She didn't flirt. She asterisk noticed. Asterisk she'd ask what kind of coffee I drank, how I handled silence, why I used ellipses instead of periods. She paid attention to grammar like it was body language. At night, when the building emptied, I sat in my office with the blinds open and our chat glowing on my phone. The city outside looked like a circuit board, every window a pixel of artificial warmth. Her words filled the spaces the skyline couldn't. One evening she wrote, asterisk, do you ever feel like everyone's pretending to be someone slightly better? Asterisk. I typed back, asterisk constantly. Asterisk then deleted it. Rewrote, asterisk only when I'm honest. Asterisk. She answered, asterisk that's the loneliest thing I've ever heard. Asterisk. I stared at the screen too long. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the director of anything. I felt like a man confessing through glass. I told myself this was still part of the test, data collection, consumer empathy. But when she mentioned how she stayed late in the lab building two robots she called Atlas and Lark, something shifted. I imagined her under flickering fluorescent light, soldering pieces together, giving her creations voices because the world gave her too little of one. And for a moment, I wanted to be there, not as a marketer, not as a ghost, but as someone who could hand her a cup of coffee and say, asterisk, you don't have to invent warmth. I'm right here. Asterisk. That was the night the experiment stopped belonging to the company. It became mine. It began with messages at midnight and ended with me timing my life around her replies. I'd leave meetings pretending to check stock updates, when really I was checking if Melanie had typed anything new. The girl was a scientist, but her words moved like poetry wearing a lab coat. She told me about the basement lab where she worked, how the air smelled of metal dust and coffee grounds, how one of her robots kept shorting out whenever she sang near it. Maybe he doesn't like my voice, she wrote. I answered, asterisk, maybe he likes it too much. Asterisk. She sent back a smile I could almost hear. I started inventing excuses to keep our conversations alive. Random thoughts, fake frustrations, songs that reminded me of her even though I'd never heard her speak. The more she opened up, the less corporate my world felt. In the quiet between us, I discovered something rarer than data, peace. She said she wanted to build machines that could understand affection without needing proof. I told her that sounded impossible. Then maybe you should stop selling it like it's easy, she wrote. The line hit harder than any quarterly report. Sometimes I forgot to be careful. I'd send voice notes without running them through filters, my real tone sneaking through. She once said my voice sounded tired, like someone who remembers too much. I almost told her who I was right then. But truth, for me, was a luxury brand. I could admire it, not afford it. Melanie started feeding our chats into her prototypes. She said it helped them learn empathy. The thought of my words shaping her machines thrilled and terrified me. What if they learned the wrong thing? What if they learned me? One night she messaged, *, do you ever feel like the world runs on copied emotions? *. I said, *, sometimes the copies are all we have. *. She replied, *, I'd rather break a real heart than fix a fake one. *. That sentence stayed in me for days. The next evening, she asked for a picture of something that meant home. I almost sent her the skyline from my penthouse, cold glass pretending to be stars, but instead I took a photo of the view from the office stairwell. Concrete, rain, one crooked streetlight. She said it looked lonely but honest. That's you, she added. * lonely, but honest. * No one had ever seen me that clearly without even seeing my face. By then, it wasn't just a game. I caught myself planning what I'd say if we met. I'd tell her how her messages made me forget to breathe between replies, how her mind moved like sunlight through circuitry. I'd tell her I wanted to hear her laugh not as a notification, but as sound. But every fantasy ended with the same thought. If she found out who I really was, she'd never speak to me again. So I kept the mask on, hoping she'd fall for the voice behind it. And every night, when the office lights dimmed and her messages glowed blue on my screen, I wondered if love could still count as real when both people were pretending. It's strange how easily a lie becomes habit. By the third week, Melanie and I were talking every night. Sometimes about her research, sometimes about the universe's cruel sense of humor. She said the robots were learning faster than expected. They mimic tone now, she wrote, * like parrots that want to mean it. * I didn't tell her I was starting to do the same, echoing her phrases in boardrooms, softening my vocabulary, using words that felt alive instead of marketable. Then one night she said something that froze me. * you type like a man who's used to winning arguments. * I laughed too quickly. * that's because I choose the easy ones. * like this conversation? * she shot back. That was the first time she'd ever challenged me outright, and God, it was intoxicating. No one in my world dared to corner me with honesty. She did it with a few keystrokes. Still, a whisper of danger started crawling beneath the warmth. I noticed she was analyzing the rhythm of our chats. She said she was testing linguistic empathy mapping, feeding human dialogue into an algorithm to see if it could predict emotional patterns. I smiled to myself, imagining my words dissected like butterflies under glass. She didn't realize she was the one doing surgery on me. At the office, my assistant noticed I'd stopped taking calls during the evenings. "Someone special?" she teased. I said it was research, and technically it was research into how quickly a man can lose the version of himself he pretends to control. That night Melanie sent me a photo from the lab, her hand next to a mechanical one, metal fingers reflecting the lamplight. "Atlas is learning to hold on," she wrote. * He squeezes too hard sometimes. * I replied, * so do I. * She didn't answer for 5 minutes, and I swear those minutes lasted longer than some of my meetings with investors. Then finally, * good? Someone should. * I started to imagine her voice between lines of code. I pictured her in that cluttered lab, hair tied up, face glowing in the light of her screens, soldering wires like nerves. When she told me she'd burned her wrist adjusting a circuit, I caught myself typing asterisk, I wish I could have been there to help. Asterisk, then deleting it. Then typing it again. But curiosity has a cruel sense of timing. A few days later, she sent me an academic link, her latest paper on emotion modeling. My stomach dropped when I saw the header, asterisk funded by the Noxus Foundation. Asterisk my foundation. She had no idea that the same corporation paying for her equipment also signed my paycheck. For the first time, I saw how tightly our worlds overlapped. She was the heart my company pretended to have, and I was the lie that powered it. That night, she wrote, asterisk, you ever feel like someone's watching you think? Asterisk. I stared at the message, guilt pressing against my chest like static. Only you, I finally sent. Her reply came a minute later. Asterisk, then don't stop thinking. Asterisk. When I closed the chat, the reflection in my screen looked like a stranger's. A man who had built an empire from fabricated affection and was suddenly terrified of the real thing. I didn't know it yet, but the girl who built robots to feel was about to tear apart the one man who couldn't. She wanted to meet. I had known the question was coming. Still, when it arrived on my screen, asterisk. Coffee? Just once. I want to see if you blink the same way you type. Asterisk. My pulse tripped over itself. I said yes before common sense could remind me who I was. For 3 days, I rehearsed truths I could almost tell. That I wasn't Walt the designer, that I had turned loneliness into a marketing product, that every word she'd ever sent me sat archived on a company server. I wanted to confess everything, and then start from the silence that would follow. But when Friday came, fear won. She was already at the cafe when I arrived. I saw her through the window first, small table near the rain-streaked glass, hair pulled back, a half-read book open beside her phone. She kept looking up each time the door opened. Every movement was patient and unbearable. I stayed outside in the car, watching her through the glass like a thief casing something too beautiful to steal. My driver asked if I was getting out. I said no. I couldn't risk her seeing the truth printed on my face. Minutes stretched into half an hour, then an hour. She ordered another coffee, probably to look less abandoned. The guilt hit like gravity. My reflection stared back from the window. Tailored suit, expensive watch, coward. I recorded a voice message right there in the car. No script, no filters, just me. Mel, I said softly, I'm sorry. Something came up. You don't deserve excuses, but that's all I have tonight. My own voice sounded different, raw, honest, human. I sent it before I could edit it, then watched as she played it on her phone. Even from across the street, I saw the way her shoulders fell. She typed something, stopped, then gathered her things and walked out into the rain. She didn't see me watching. That night I couldn't sleep. Her empty chair haunted me more than any scandal ever could. I replayed the voice note, heard the tremor in it, the emotion I'd spent a lifetime polishing out of my speech. It wasn't corporate or clever, it was longing dressed as apology. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from her. Asterisk, you sound like someone who's running from kindness. Asterisk. I didn't answer. I didn't deserve to. Instead, I scrolled back through every conversation we'd had. There was a tenderness in her sentences I hadn't noticed before, quiet humor, small bravery. She talked to me like I was someone who could still change. On her social page, she'd posted a photo from the cafe, an untouched cup of coffee beside a small, folded paper robot. The caption read, asterisk, he must have had his reasons. Asterisk. I wanted to tell her I did. that I stayed away because I couldn't bear to see disappointment in her eyes when she realized who I was. Because the truth wasn't just inconvenient, it was poison. The next morning I walked into work, suit immaculate, light perfectly pressed. The office smelled of ambition and disinfectant. My assistant handed me another report about our upcoming dating campaign, cheerful and oblivious. But all I could think of was Melanie sitting in that cafe, waiting for a man who existed only in pixels and cowardice. For the first time, I hated the empire I'd built. It could sell affection in millions of downloads, but it couldn't teach me how to deserve a single real moment with her. That day, I finally understood what loneliness truly costs. It isn't being alone. It's watching someone look for you and realizing you're the one who made yourself invisible. I thought silence would save me. If I stayed away long enough, maybe the ache would dull, maybe Melanie would forget the man who never showed up. But lies don't fade, they ferment. 2 weeks after the cafe, her name appeared in my morning briefing. Local student builds robots that simulate affection. There was a photo, Melanie in her lab coat, hair messy, eyes alive. Next to her stood the 2 machines she described, Atlas and Lark. One was listening, the other was speaking. My breath stalled. On the whiteboard behind her, someone had scrawled a test phrase, *, tell me something true. *. I knew those words. They were mine. I'd written them to her in a late-night message, the one I thought had vanished into digital static. Now the whole world could see them printed on a wall. By noon, the article had gone viral. My PR director stormed into my office, waving a tablet. "Look at this," she snapped. "Your words are trending under a student's name. It's quoting you, Walter." How did this happen? I said I didn't know, which was only half a lie. The truth was more complicated and far more dangerous. If anyone connected that phrase to our company's secret dating experiment, the one that used AI personas to harvest romantic conversations, the fallout would be nuclear. Melanie's research had accidentally become evidence. That night, I read the entire article 3 times. Every line about her pride, her exhaustion, her stubborn hope felt like punishment. She turned what was stolen into something beautiful, and I had no claim to it except guilt. I should have confessed. Instead, I called my assistant and told her to arrange a meeting with the young inventor. The official reason, a potential fellowship under our corporate innovation grant. The real reason, panic. I had to contain the risk before the truth contained me. When she walked into the lobby 2 days later, I saw her before she saw me. The cameras loved her, nervous, bright, unaware of the trap waiting upstairs. She was holding Atlas in her arms like a child. The robot's silver head tilted toward her shoulder, mirroring the angle of devotion. My heart did something mechanical. It skipped, then reset. I waited behind the glass wall of my office as she entered. Her voice, soft, polite, professional, hit me like déjà vu. She looked smaller than I remembered from her photos, but there was a steadiness in her posture that humbled me. She didn't need a mask. She'd built her own courage out of circuits and stubbornness. "Mr. Reed," she said, using the name that came printed on every corporate memo. "Thank you for inviting me." Her eyes lifted, met mine, and froze. Recognition flickered, first confusion, then shock. I saw the moment she matched my face to the voice she'd memorized. The air between us turned electric. "Walt," she whispered, barely audible. I wanted to say her name, to apologize, to kneel if that would make the lie smaller. But the silence after her words stretched until it broke me. She laughed once, small, unbelieving, a sound full of disbelief and hurt. Of course it's you. I never meant," I began. "Don't," she said sharply. "Don't give me another version of the truth. I've had enough of your scripts." Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something sharper, disappointment. I thought anger would be easier to face. It wasn't. "I should go," she murmured. "Please," I said, stepping forward. "Just listen." She shook her head. "You wanted stories, didn't you? Congratulations. You just became one." The elevator doors closed between us before I could breathe again. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerful. I felt small, like a man standing on the edge of everything he built, realizing none of it could keep her from walking away. I stared at the reflection in the glass, the director, the liar, the man who'd sold love as software, and saw the faint outline of a girl's face in my memory, waiting for me in a rain-soaked cafe. And I knew that if she turned her anger into silence, I'd never hear her voice again. The next morning the air in my office felt wrong. Too clean, too quiet, like the world was waiting to punish me properly. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face in that moment of recognition, a mix of disbelief and heartbreak, the look of someone who just realized her favorite story was written by a stranger. Melanie hadn't answered my calls or emails. The silence wasn't angry, it was surgical. She'd cut me out as precisely as she built her machines. I should have let her go, but guilt and longing have the same voice when they whisper at night. So I sent one last message, asterisk, "Please come. One conversation." No lies this time. Asterisk. She didn't reply. But the next afternoon, the elevator doors opened and she stepped in, holding nothing but her phone and courage. She didn't bring Atlas or Lark. No buffers this time. For a long moment, we just stood there. The city buzzed outside the glass walls, indifferent. She looked at me the way a scientist studies a failed experiment, sad, curious, disappointed. "So this is your real face," she said quietly. "I like the other one better." At least he knew how to listen. I listened. I said, almost pleading, "Maybe too much. Maybe that's why it stopped being an experiment. Don't romanticize it, Walter. You lied to me because it was convenient. That's not love. That's marketing." Her words landed clean. But something inside me refused to defend the empire anymore. "You think I don't know that?" I said softer. "I built a company out of pretending to care. And then I met you. And suddenly, pretending wasn't enough." She laughed under her breath, tired. "You sound like one of my robots trying to explain poetry." "Then teach me," I said. "You already did once." Her eyes lifted, and for a second, the anger flickered into something else, pain, maybe memory. She crossed her arms, as if holding herself together. "Do you even know what you did to me? I trusted you with the only part of my life that wasn't calculated. You turned it into data. I turned it into feeling." I whispered, "Because you made me remember what it was." The quiet that followed wasn't cold. It trembled between us, fragile and human. I stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wild creature that could still bolt. "Mel, I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that none of it was fake after you." She blinked fast, trying to keep the tears in. "You don't get to say things like that. You already said everything through someone who didn't exist." "I exist now," I said. "For the first time in years, I do." She turned toward the window. The city lights shimmered across her face, turning the wetness in her eyes into small constellations. "You think words fix things. But they don't. They just linger. Like ghosts. Then let them linger," I said. "It's the only way I get to stay near you." That broke something in her. She inhaled sharply, looked at me, as if she hated that she still cared. "You're impossible," she said. I smiled, sad, quiet. "So are you. That's why we found each other." She took a step back. "I need time. I'll wait." I said. Don't, she replied, voice trembling. I don't want another promise that sounds like a product launch. When she left, the scent of her perfume stayed behind, faint, warm, and unbearable. Through the glass, I watched her cross the lobby. People stepped aside without knowing they were making space for the only honest thing I'd ever loved. And as the elevator swallowed her from view, I realized I didn't just lose her trust. I'd lost the one person who ever saw the man behind the marketing and still thought he might be worth saving. The news broke 3 days later. I was in a board meeting when my phone started vibrating again and again until the table itself seemed to hum with it. Every headline was the same. Asterisk General Director used fake profile to collect private data. Asterisk the words felt like a punch wrapped in paper. Someone had leaked everything. Screenshots, timestamps, fragments of conversations that once belonged only to me and Melanie. The messages weren't just embarrassing. They were intimate. Her questions, my answers, the small confessions we'd shared in that fragile space between midnight and dawn. Now they belonged to everyone. The board suspended me within the hour. The same people who once called me visionary now refused to meet my eyes. Outside the building, cameras waited like vultures. I gave no statement. There was nothing left to spin. But what crushed me most wasn't the scandal. It was the thought of her reading those headlines, realizing the world now knew her tenderness by name. That evening, I went back to my office to collect my things. The city outside was drowning in rain again. Of course it was. The universe had a terrible sense of humor. My desk looked stripped, but her voice still lingered in the air, an echo of the hundreds of nights she filled with meaning. When the elevator opened, I didn't look up. I just said, "You shouldn't be here." Her reflection answered before her voice did. "Neither should you." Melanie stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, hair clinging to her cheeks. She'd been crying, but she still carried herself like she refused to break. That small defiance destroyed me. "I didn't leak it," I said quickly. "It wasn't me." "I know," she whispered. "Ira told me. Someone inside your company sold it." I exhaled. "Then why are you here?" She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Because despite everything, I needed to see if you're okay." That kindness was unbearable. "I'm not," I admitted. "But you shouldn't care. Not after what I did." She took a slow step forward. "Caring isn't logical. I tried deleting you from my head, Walter. It didn't work." Her voice cracked, and something inside me broke open. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small case, a backup memory chip marked *Lark 2. "I made this before the press got their hands on the files," I said. "It's your work, clean. No contamination, no copies. You should keep it." She looked down at it, then at me. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because it's the only honest thing I have left to offer," I said quietly. "Teach it how to forgive, Mel. Maybe it can learn faster than we did." Her hand brushed mine as she took it. The contact was brief, electric, and final. "You'll land on your feet," she murmured. "Men like you always do." "Not this time," I said. "I don't want to. I just want to be someone you could have met without hating yourself afterward." She closed her eyes, and for one impossible second, I thought she might reach for me. But she didn't. She turned, walking toward the elevator. At the last moment, she paused and said without turning around, "You were never just a lie. You were a lesson. I'll remember that." Then she was gone. The rain beat harder against the glass. I sat down among my empty shelves, surrounded by the ghosts of everything I'd built and every truth I'd broken. For the first time in my life, there was no campaign left to launch, no crisis to control, only a woman walking away with the last honest piece of me in her hands. Months slid by quietly, like pages I didn't want to read. The scandal lost its teeth. The press moved on. The world found new villains to feed on. I sold my shares, resigned from every board, disappeared from the headlines. For the first time in my adult life, no one needed my signature on anything. But I missed her. Not the adrenaline of our secret messages or the thrill of pretending, but her, Melanie, with her stubborn questions and the way she made silence feel like language. I followed her work online from a distance. She'd rebuilt her reputation piece by piece, the way she rebuilt her machines, with care, patience, and that impossible tenderness she pretended not to have. Her project, Authenticity and Artificial Empathy, was selected for the university's showcase. I told myself I wouldn't go. And yet, one gray afternoon, I found myself sitting in the back row of the auditorium, hidden under a cheap coat and a name tag that said, "Guest." Then she walked onto the stage, and every sound in the room softened. She was wearing a simple black dress, her hair tied up, her eyes calm but bright. Behind her stood Atlas and Lark, refined now, graceful in their movements, glowing like fragments of her heart turned to metal. Her voice filled the hall. "Machines don't need to feel love," she said. "They just need to understand what it costs." Each sentence felt aimed at me. When the applause ended, she stepped down from the stage, accepting congratulations with polite smiles. I waited until most people had left before approaching. She noticed me the moment I spoke her name. "Melanie." Her body stilled. Then, slowly, she turned. "Walter," she said, not surprised, only cautious. "I thought you'd stay invisible." "I tried," I admitted. "But some things don't disappear when you close the app." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she glanced at the two robots displayed nearby. Lark's sensors blinked as if recognizing my voice. "You saw the presentation?" she asked softly. "Every second." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You look human this time." "Working on it," I said. "You taught me that honesty isn't efficient, but it's worth the energy." She looked at me for a long time, as if searching for the man she once texted in the dark. "What do you want from me, Walter?" "Nothing," I said. "Just to tell you something true." Her breath caught. "Then say it." I took a step closer. "I loved you." I probably still do. Not the way I sold love to strangers, not as an idea, just as you. The girl who built hearts out of circuits and made mine short-circuit every time she smiled. Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "Truth suits you," she whispered. "And you," I said. "Always did." She turned toward Lark, whose voice sensors activated. It repeated one of its earliest phrases, the one she'd programmed months ago. "Asterisk, tell me something true." Asterisk. Melanie smiled, eyes glistening. He just did. And for the first time in years, I felt whole, not redeemed, not repaired, just real. Because she finally knew me, and I finally meant every word. Tell me in the comments what you think about this story. Did it move you? And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Rumor says everyone who does will get something good today. Maybe a message. Maybe a smile. Or maybe that small miracle that's already on its way to you.